Hello, and welcome to Week 8 Power Rankings. As you have seen over the past few weeks, I know absolutely nothing about the NFL. And it turns out nobody does. Whether it's not being able to predict upsets, not knowing what teams are good, I have now settled on a new method to determine what teams will make the top 10. It is highly advanced, technical, and I am about to show you right now. Packers, you made it! Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Does anybody have any idea anymore? I don't. Grossi, and today we are going to attempt, an emphasis on the attempt, to try and rank the top 10 teams heading into NFL Week 8. And I gotta be honest with you, I truly don't know. And it's kind of like a running joke of like, there's so much chaos. But the Vikings beat the 49ers last night. The Vikings barely beat the Bears. What are we doing? I don't know anymore. And so we're going to attempt. I'm going to try, and we'll see how this goes. I do have two honorable mentions who failed to make the top 10, but they're close. They're close. The first one being the leader of the NFC South, just like everybody predicted, the Atlanta Falcons, coming away with a big win against the Buccaneers this past week. And I know Desmond Ridder, there is still lots of concerns about Ridder on if he's the guy or not. But even with all that going on, even with Bijan not really playing, you're still number one in the division, and you deserve a mention. And the second team, it's gonna be the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Steelers going to Super Bowl. Yes, they got gifted a free yard by the refs, but they are just one of those teams that don't seem to go away, and they will also put on the worst performance possible, well, because Matt Canada runs that offense, but still get the win. And so, because of that, Steelers, you get a shout out too. And now, let's get into the top 10. Starting off with number 10, you got the Dallas Cowboys, who were able to have a nice, relaxing... You loved it because the 49ers lost, and I can't imagine how Scooter Magruder is going to be on Thursday. But I will say, Cowboys fans, now you're finally able to talk smack again after that bye week.
It's my turn! It is. You told me it was my turn.
You can talk all that you want to, yell and scream. You
okay,
lost.
it is my turn.
You lost the game.
Also because you weren't playing, so you couldn't actually lose. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles prove that they are a damn good football team, but for the Cowboys, the 49ers losing is always a great day, and they were able to relax, get healthy, and I'm still not sold on the Cowboys in any way, shape, or form. But maybe they're going to look a little bit better after the bye week. They do have a game with the Eagles that's coming up in their near future within the next 2 weeks, and I think that game is going to be a really great test for both teams. And because it's a divisional match, you never know how that's going to go. But for right now, Cowboys, you remain in the top 10 by doing absolutely nothing. So, congratulations. Number 9, you got the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks getting involved with the Cardinals this past week, coming away with the win. And I have to say one thing. Devin Witherspoon is that guy. He is just phenomenal. I think that he is probably leading the pack when it comes to Defensive Rookie of the Year. And that defense is slowly but surely starting to mesh into something that could be really, really good. You also saw JSN get his first touchdown, Bobo with the toe tap, and unfortunately, there is still that one lingering problem because this is the Seahawks every single time they see the red zone.
What about that shadowy place?
For whatever reason, they just have no red zone offense. And don't feel bad because the Packers, they have no first half offense. But the Seahawks are getting into the top 10, and I think that they are a very solid football team. The 49ers showing that they were vulnerable after losing to the Vikings last night. The Seahawks, they got to be like, oh man, now we go. I know that there's a little bit of controversy with Geno Smith right now about fans saying, yeah, he's a problem, or people being like, hey, we got to give him some credit. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks are continuously winning games. Their defense is looking really, really good. And if those young guys like Bobo and JSN can get more targets, even when DK Metcalf is back, that offense, I'm sure, is going to fix itself, and they'll be climbing higher in the top 10. Number 8, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know it was a little while ago. It was from Thursday night, but the Saints almost caught you.
You will always remember this as the day that you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow.
The Jaguars defense has been a high point of that team these past couple of weeks. Starting off against the Bills in London, they really have just built upon it. Of course, they had that game against the Colts in which they made Gardner Minshew's life horrific. And then against the Saints, they were really able to hold the Saints. They even had a pick 6. But slowly but surely, they allowed the Saints to crawl on back, and thankfully they were able to seal that game away. But there are still concerns when it comes to that offense. Calvin Ridley not really being involved this past Thursday, and it just seems like that offense is not meshing that well. You could blame the Saints defense as to why they had some trouble. ETN still having a really good night, and I think overall the Jaguars are still going to be fine. I think their main competition within that division is going to be the Texans, who had a bye this past week, and so as long as they kind of keep going forward, I think they will still be contenders, not only for that division, but of course in the playoffs. I think they could be a sneaky good team, especially if that defense continues to improve. So right now, Jaguars, you're sitting at number 8. Let's see if you can be taken higher. Number 7, you got the Cleveland Browns. You know why you're down at number 7, because yes, your defense is amazing, more specifically Myles Garrett, but you know how Colts fans feel after you stole that one on Sunday.
They stole it from us.
Getting some help from the refs 2 weeks in a row, by the way, which for Browns fans, they got to be wondering what the hell is going on. And listen, I could talk about that defense all day long because they are really good. Myles Garrett was an absolute force. However, the Colts were able to do a lot of damage and quite frankly, should have won that game on Sunday. So there's definitely some cause for concern. The other concern is, of course, quarterback. Deshaun Watson, even when he was playing, I know he was dealing with a rotator cuff injury, he looked horrible. Completed one pass, threw an interception, and then got knocked out of the game. So I don't know what the heck you do with Deshaun Watson. We'll see if he's going to miss a substantial amount of time. But at QB right now, you don't have a ton of options, and there's some trouble there. Your defense can definitely win you football games. You don't have to worry about that. But eventually, you're going to have to play some offense. And when you're going up against those high-flying teams, and if your defense can't slow them down, there could be problems. But for right now, the Browns, they remain in the top 10. Let's see if they can fix things on offense. Number 6, you got the Detroit Lions. I didn't drop you too far. You went from 1 to 6. However, I'm not going to lie. Me watching the Lions lose?
Oh, Sandra, you dumb bitch.
Listen, I need something because I'm in your position that you've been in for years now. The Lions got absolutely smacked by the Ravens this past Sunday. And the Lions, listen, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. They're playing an AFC opponent. Lamar Jackson was just phenomenal. I am a little bit concerned about their offense because they really struggled, and that's not where the majority of their injuries are. But let's just be very frank here. And I know I'm Tom, but the Lions are going to be fine. Have you seen the division that you're in? It's terrible. Yes, the Vikings had a big win, and maybe they're going to start mounting some wins. But I will say, the Lions are far and away the best team in the NFC North. I wouldn't be too concerned. Their defense on most days is really, really good. But again, dealing with injuries, going against Lamar, who returned to MVP form, and your offense struggling against an AFC team that you don't play very often, the sky is not falling. Do you need to fix things? Absolutely. But I still think the Lions are going to be major contenders in the playoffs. I think they have a really great chance to not only get to the playoffs, but win a playoff game. So shake it off, Lions fans. It could always be worse. You could be the Packers right now. Number 5, you got the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not going to lie. Their defense might be broken. I know their secondary has always been a weak point of that defense, but good God, Ward was getting torched by Jordan Addison, of course, except for the one interception in the beginning of the game. But that secondary looked horrific. But not only that, because you kind of say, all right, their secondary is the weak point, but the pass rush was non-existent against the Vikings O-line. Kirk Cousins never got sacked, and you have to wonder what the hell happened to them. Meanwhile, the offense, I know CMC is banged up. They didn't have Trent Williams, and of course, no Deebo Samuel. But come on, man. They did not look good. And Brock Purdy throwing 2 interceptions, 1 to end the game. There's some trouble going on there because let's be very honest, the Vikings heading into this week were not looking like a good team. As I mentioned before, they almost lost to the Bears, and the only reason they didn't was because of their defense. And the Vikings, they deserve some credit for that. They're not going to get an honorable mention because they're the purple incarnation of Satan, but their defense made the 49ers offense just struggle. Of course, you had that 3-play drive with Christian McCaffrey. They were able to move the ball, but it just wasn't consistent. And I'm not saying the sky is falling right now for the 49ers, but losing 2 straight against 2 teams that they definitely should have beaten. The Browns, I'm kind of giving them a pass a little bit, but overall, I definitely have some concerns about the 49ers, especially with the Eagles looking so good. So San Francisco, let's see if you're able to right the ship. When Trent Williams comes back and Deebo Samuel, I imagine that offense is going to be back up to where they usually are. But for that defense, you better get some help and quick. Number 4, you got the Miami Dolphins, falling from number 2 last week down to number 4. And for the second time this season, that high-flying offense got grounded. But I imagine that Dolphins fans are not too happy with the refs this week.
We've already told me off. Let's move on.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Because 10 penalties being thrown against the Dolphins, 0 against the Eagles. There were missed calls, but let's be very honest. They were going to lose that game anyway because the Eagles just showed that they were the better football team that night. And plus, they had the Kelly Green jerseys. It's very difficult to lose in the Kelly Green jerseys. But the Dolphins, definitely some concerns here. They've lost against the Bills. Now they've lost against the Eagles. And the Eagles are definitely high-quality opponents. I don't think there's any shame in that. They're not going to have to play the Eagles again unless they go to the Super Bowl. But I think overall there are concerns about how you can limit that Dolphins offense. The defense, the Eagles were able to move the ball pretty darn well. And I really think that for the Dolphins offense, they are missing Achane a lot. Even though Mostert was able to do a little bit, I do think that Achane just provided that explosiveness that they are missing. And that entire offense was basically the Tyreek Hill show, which, to be fair, is going to beat a lot of teams. But the Dolphins, they met an unmovable force on Sunday night. And going forward, I think they're going to be just fine. They just got announced for Hard Knocks mid-season, so we'll get to see more Mike McDaniel clips. And I think that with a great coach like they have, they'll be able to bounce back. But I will say, I think the Dolphins do need to beat a good team to silence some of the haters, and they will have an opportunity to do so in the coming weeks. Number 3, jumping all the way up, you got the Baltimore Ravens. And this is what happens when Lamar plays incredible and the receivers actually catch the ball.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
Just 2 dominating sides of the football on Sunday. Their defense was incredible and really limited anything the Lions were trying to do. Their defense has been pretty damn good this year. And the offense, it just feels like they finally clicked. Because even in the London game against Tennessee, they didn't look so great. They had issues with drops in previous weeks. But this game, they were perfect. Lamar Jackson rushing it in for touchdowns, throwing touchdowns, receivers making great plays, and it was just clicking all the way around. And this is what the Ravens could look like, and maybe it just took this long for it to finally click because the Lions, they are contenders. And in that AFC North where it is just a slugfest, the Bengals are coming back, the Steelers and Browns are there. The Ravens, if they're able to stay healthy, which of course is a big if, and they have not had luck this season doing so, they are going to be tough to take down. And I think right now, the only ones that can actually take down the Ravens are inside the AFC North, because whatever happens whenever they all play, it's just total chaos. So the Ravens get a big win against a great contender in the Lions this past Sunday. They're at number 3. And if Lamar keeps playing like this, might not be long until they're going into the number 1 or number 2 spot. Number 2, you got the Kansas City Chiefs. And Chiefs fans, Your offense is back.
Which means you can drink if you want, and we can say whatever the hell we want.
Jizz.
Let the smack talk resume. The Chiefs' offense, of course, being a high point in which Travis Kelce absolutely burned the Chargers. McCole Hardman returning after doing his little stint with the Jets. He had a big return, which was really nice to see. But the real story for me about this Chiefs team, which makes them different from past years, is how good their defense is. This is arguably the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has played with. It's been the least amount of points that the Chiefs' defense has allowed since Patrick Mahomes has taken over as their QB. And that is a scary, scary stat. And listen, the Chargers, they're an okay team right now. They're struggling right now. They have a lot of talent. And I'm not going to say that this makes the Chiefs automatic Super Bowl winners. But the way the Chiefs have been playing football, you have to like their progression. Their offense is finally finding their groove again. They're looking like the old Chiefs. And if that defense can stay kind of stingy, yeah, I have no doubts that they will be going back to the Super Bowl. I know it's only week 8, but yeah, we're going to be seeing a whole lot more of Taylor Swift, so get used to it. And number 1, returning back to the top of the power rankings, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. And listen, every single time that team needs a first down,
All it takes is a little push.
this is the way. The Eagles dominating the Dolphins on Sunday night and just looking like the better overall team. Their defense looking really, really good, and I know they got some help from the refs, but overall, they were not going to be stopped that night. Their offense, Jalen Hurts playing much better than he did against the Jets the previous week. A.J. Brown showing that he's worth every single penny. But that's not all. Not only were they able to stop that offense, but then they added to that defense because they traded with the Titans again and ripped them off again. And I will say, getting that safety help is really important. I think he's going to be a solid addition to that backfield. But the fact that it's the Titans and the fact that they gave up pretty much nothing, Howie is just a madman. So the Eagles are not done trying to improve, which just makes them even scarier. They're already, in my opinion, right now, through 7 weeks, they look like the best team in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see them play against high-quality opponents the rest of the season and see how they match up. But for right now, it's fly, Eagles, fly to the top of the power rankings. And so to recap, at number 1, you got the Eagles, number 2, the Chiefs, 3, the Ravens, 4, the Dolphins, 5, the 49ers, 6, the Lions, 7, the Browns, 8, Jaguars, 9, Seahawks, and 10, Cowboys. But, of course, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who should be on this list? Who should not? Let me know. You know, I saw me at Tom Grossi Comedy. All social media is down below. A big shout out and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.